So I'm here to talk about the good idea and the networking behind it. And it's a big idea I had. It involved basically a lot of banks and a lot of the payment networks, which is pretty much a lot of the top players in New Zealand. And I'm just a small guy from Palmerston North, and really taking that forward was straight away I got told it's too hard and give up. So really, first of all, I'm just going to talk about having a great idea, and essentially that in New Zealand you don't necessarily want to talk about it. And that really comes from sort of being in these small New Zealand, and in terms of the world, we like to keep things to ourselves. So for example, we don't like necessarily the outside influences coming in. We've got sort of our own cultures, we've got everything that we love, and we don't want it to change. And really, it got me off like with a question. I'll start off with a question actually just first. So has anyone here got a business idea that they're looking to take forward? And don't be afraid, I'm not going to ask you what it is. I just want to, is anyone here sort of thinking about something? That's fine. That's all right. And basically, if you did have an idea, would you be afraid to tell everyone about it? Is it something that you feel that you want to keep to yourself and not necessarily tell others about? It's basically, it's an interesting stigma, and it's probably putting people on the spot tends to claim up a bit, but that's just because we're conservative. And what I want to tell you about is an idea that I have just thought about this morning, and it's basically creating a social network where you use the car registration as your identifier. And what you can do is you start talking to each other through cars, so you can straight away think, oh, I could contact that person if they were a bad driver. I could contact that person if they left their lights on. And there's lots of things, and what happens is you can think about that idea and think of other things, and I can think about it in the way I'm going to approach it. And because we've both got different paths for the same idea, that's the reason why you should talk about it. Because if someone gets your idea, it doesn't mean that they're going to go ahead and do exactly what you're going to do. And it doesn't mean they're going to do it better. So that's really an essence of why you should talk about it, because it'll get them thinking about it. And chances are, if you're thinking about it strongly and they're not really, they're not going to go ahead and do it. So it's really a friend-foe situation you kind of get into early on in the phase when you've got an idea. And it's something it's like really crucial that you can talk to others and really talk about your idea. But I'll get into that a bit more. And what I'm going to do is the culture is, as I said, it's reserved, and we like to control a lot of things, and that comes down to, you talk about something, our number 8 why approach is, if you haven't done it, if you can't find someone else who's done it, just do it ourselves. And that's great, right? So you go out there, you've got farmers doing fantastic things that people overseas aren't doing because they haven't found a mass market to build it for, whereas we've got a problem in our fence. You know, the electric fence is a perfect example. And we built that ourselves, and then we managed to market and commercialise it. And that's another thing New Zealand isn't good at. It's not good at commercialising outside of New Zealand. We're great at talking in our small, comfortable positions where we are, but we're not good at building things overseas. And that's our culture. We're trying to change it through the internet, and obviously that brings other things in, but we've just got to really learn who we are, not hate it, work with it, and try not to change it. It's just one of the things. Getting out of that comfort zone is great, but if you're going to get out of your element, you find that you lose a lot of confidence too. And before I get into the networking thing, I'm just going to tell a little bit about myself. So Drew, I've got an idea of paperless receipts, and the concept seems so simple. You've got the receipt that you've got normally, and you're putting it somewhere else where it might be more relevant, i.e. internet banking. And that seems so simple. Then I jumped into it, and straight away people said, no, this is really hard. You're going to have to get the banks involved. You're going to have to get the payment networks involved. You're going to have to get the retailers involved. You're going to have to get consumers on board. There's so many things you've got to consider, and it didn't faze me. And what that came down to is my love of psychology. I love the fact that people can dismiss something straight away, and then in the meantime you can build it up, and they'll dismiss. And that's sort of a little bit of our culture as well, is if you see something that's too hard, people will go, oh, that's not good. And then they'll start going off and start to, oh no, that's not good. And you get a bit of a momentum, and that's just the typical click group. But I like to stay out of that. It's not that I'm antisocial, I just love to sort of challenge and ask why. And that's something we do often is, you know, if someone's not doing it, why aren't we doing it? And I've also got a love of I guess, the detail of inner workings of things. That comes from like a little bit of eccentricness. And I love to find out how things work. Like there's an ad on TV, you know, they'll do some computer generated stuff. I'll find out oh, how did they build that? How did they get it to merge into the scene? Those sort of things. Just break it down into those little stupid things that, how does the car work? I've always had a love of those encyclopedias and reading them. And starting PaperKut was 3 years ago, and really the end product is putting it in internet banking. And that's working on the psychological players. You go to your retailer, you don't make any differences whatsoever to what there is. Overseas, there's people who go, hey, tell us your email address. Straight away you've given them your email address. What happens? They're going to start sending you marketing material. So we don't want to do that. Other people are trying to add things to the purchase. So you go and make your purchase, then you have to scan a barcode, or you present a loyalty card, for example, and they'll attach them to those. But what we're doing is we're canning all that. What works currently? What are people doing? People don't necessarily want to change. You've got adoptions where people adopt quickly, and then you've got to get the rest of the world. And what we're doing is, to do that, I've got to work with so many people, and that's where networking really becomes important, because I was just a little guy and sort of Palmerston North, not many connections in Wellington, got to get this going, and a lot of headquarters in Auckland. So it really, it was a bit of a journey. I've had a business partner come and leave. I've had IP issues, so overseas companies have gotten a wind of it. They've come along and sent the cease and desist orders. It's amazing just what just from talking about it can get it out there, and the next thing you know, someone's been talking about it over in America. And as much of a cease and desist as a deterrent, you're actually going, wow, this idea's got legs, and people are talking about it. So I've had tens of thousands of dollars of legal advice, had a strong advisory board. It's just really, sometimes you're in the heat of it and you just need some people to talk to, and just building that advisory board is just the skills you don't have. Myself, I don't have commercial knowledge, I don't have legal knowledge, and those times where I need to know it, you've just got to have a good, strong backing, and that's really part of that, building a strong network. So the 101, so networking, what is it really? It's it's sort of working with people, I guess. There's so many various types of it. Nowadays you've got LinkedIn, you've got Facebook, you can use anything to connect outside of the local community. So places like this, there's nothing sort of stopping you connecting with someone overseas, understanding the American culture, understanding the Asian culture. China's always a key market everyone mentions, but when you actually break down to it, they are lots of small places. There's 270 something provinces in China, so you've got to break down each of those provinces, and they've got their own cultures, and when they join together, they've got subcultures. So being in a small place doesn't hinder you. If anything, it makes you less ignorant than the larger places who just assume that everyone's like them. And typically that's what you get in America. And here, we're a country of doers, we'll do it ourselves. We've got patriotism to us. We don't wear our flags on our front yards like the Americans, but we really pride ourselves in our sporting teams. Anyone does anything overseas, we love to sort of say about it, but at the same time we also downplay a lot of our wins. We don't win, we don't celebrate our wins, we don't celebrate our small wins, we don't celebrate our big wins. So it's a really interesting culture when you actually sit back and look at ourselves and sort of evaluate it, because that's what happens when you go overseas, is you talk to Americans and they're actually talking to a non-American. So straight away they don't understand slang, talk slower, talk more clearly, and you're thinking, but you're speaking English to the same person. So it's amazing just getting out there and just doing a Skype with a random person in America or Asia, or even South Africa, Brazil. They're emerging countries as well. And what we have is obviously the tall poppy syndrome, which is where we downplay. And judgment is very swift. And often things like I liken it to a reality show. So the moment you come up and do a talk, you've got 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and people make judgment with that. They don't know what I've done before, they don't know what I'm doing after, and I don't have enough time to tell them what I'm doing and everything I'm doing. So it's really key to know context, and context is amazing. So you wake up in the morning, you didn't have a good sleep, you're in a bit of a grumpy mood, and the first person that hits you probably doesn't get the best impression of you. But they need to understand that point in time we're very emotional people, because we're small, we look after each other, and we tend to feed off a lot of emotions, and you wake up in the morning, the wife isn't happy, and you kind of get defensive, and the situation is, and you've got to play down that moment. Well, in American business, you've got such a short amount of time that they don't cut to the niceties. It's basically the phone call is, hey, how's it going? I want to get this done. Okay, thanks, bye. As a Kiwi, I was offended. I thought, how's the weather? how's the family? What did you do in the weekend? And that's just the things that we've got to get over. Is sometimes when you're working outside, is the context of the situation you just need to understand and get over it. It's been really hard for me because I love to talk about the weather. I love to talk about what I've been doing. And really, I'm not going to tell you how to do networking. I just really want to sort of say my experiences and really what it comes down to is your own personal style, your own abilities really, and what works best for them. So what I've learned is it covers all markets, so as I said, banks and whatnot, everyone involved, and also the audience is young and old. So it's the emerging generations, it's also the older generations, and across that you've got so many considerations of experiences, mindsets, scarring, openness to change. And in the early stages I was working in a full-time job, and what happened was I had to still keep things going in the background and talk about what I was doing. At the same time, I'd tell my boss about what I was doing. And what happened was, I worked at Loyalty NZ, which is Flybys, as you know, and I was telling them what I was doing. Instantly, they got the wrong context, probably overhearing, and the next thing I know, the stakeholders were telling me that I was a conflict of interest and I was getting kicked out of my job. And I had to make the decision, do I go with this, or do I go with Loyalty, or do I go PaperKut? And that was a really sort of a defining moment. You'll hear that a lot about people who start businesses. There's always that defining moment that they remember. And that's mine. And I made the leap. I had a kid, had a mortgage, and had nowhere to really earn money. And it's sort of been the thing in the back of my head the whole time that I'll probably do differently next time, is having that sum of money to keep you going for a little while. And it's really important who you shouldn't talk to, because there's people who you can tell them, that CEOs, for example, they're fantastic because they're the movers and shakers of a company generally, but they only have time for that amount of information, whereas people underneath them might take a bit more. You tell them that much, again, context can get lost, and they can see you as a competitor, again, that friend or foe, whereas actually you're just trying to help them, or you're trying to help their company. I was often referred to as a clown, mainly because I was this guy doing something different, probably what they've been trying to do for a while, but haven't been able to because of the cultures inside the company. And it was also this fear of this outside person coming in and taking over part of their market, part of what they're doing. And I really, really wanted to have them do that, because it made them think about it, made them shake up sort of what they're doing and change their priorities. Banks have 5-year plans. I had a day plan. So, and that's the ability where you see these small players versus big players. Is the small guys can change, the big guys can think they can change, and they won't. And you use that against them. You can actually use that as leverage when you're trying to get something done or get them to do something. So it's a little bit of fair marketing. And from talking with people, opportunities arose. So the more I talked about it, the more it got out there. As I said, people in America heard about what I was doing, a bit of a shake around in the world about paperless receipts at the moment. There's a lot of mobile payments as a focus, but complementary to that, when you make a payment, for example, Visa PayWave and PayPass and whatnot, they don't give you the total that's been done off your card on the terminal. It'll show on the POS, but if they manually type it in, you might get charged 800 instead of 80, but of course I've got blocks for that. But that's even more reason where the receipt comes in, because you can get it on your phone, or there's some interaction to tell you how much you actually got charged. Basically, through the chatting, what I was able to do was I learnt that by chatting to one person, I could assume that the next person they knew in the chain of command had talked to the next person after that. So what it allowed me to do is, instead of having to work up the chain, I could actually leapfrog a few people. And it was great, because get to the right person and you could go straight to the CEO, or straight to the person, the innovation manager, or someone that really, really understood what you were doing. Another thing was Kiwi landing pad. So New Zealand's great where they'll support you in things, and NZTE and Kia and that have gone behind a thing called Kiwi landing pad. In San Francisco, you've got a desk. You can go to San Francisco and just sit there, and they'll set up meetings for you. They'll do everything for you. They'll match you up with the right people. They'll get you into the places you hear, Facebook, Square, Yammer, Instagram, all those places. They'll get you in there, straight into the right person. And you've got to understand that you'll only know that from talking to people, and then you'll talk to people and you learn about these places which they don't advertise very well. And another thing was, I don't take business cards to meetings, and there's a reason for this. Is what it does is, the moment you give a business card, it's like you're giving them a phone number. You expect them to ring, but they're not. No matter, they're too busy. The moment they leave that conversation with you, they're gone. Their mind's in something else. They want to do something else. They may find your business card. So what I do is I encourage that they give it to me. gives me two signals. One, that they know they want me to talk to them, so that they are actually going, yes, here are my personal details, generally their DDI, their contact phone, direct to them, their mobile phone, and they're actually happy for you to contact them. Whereas if they don't give me the card, I know straight away that they'll be going, oh no, dismiss, off we go. And I'm not going to waste my time. I don't want them to waste their time on me either, because it's just not the right connection. And, sorry. And it really just, allows you to get out of that situation, wasted time. Will they call? I've got my business card. I know I can call them and straight away know if they want to talk to me. And follow up. It's, just because that moment in time, again, context is a big thing. That moment in time, you might be talking to them and then they've got to go off, they've got a phone call or something, lots of distractions these days, emails, whatever else that come in. And their mind just might be clicking off in the background. You might not be quite getting through to them. And you just got to follow up. A month is about the rule of thumb. Within the human psyche, we'll remember, sort of tag, oh yes, I remember that. There'll be some relation or some trigger that will allow them to remember who you were. And of course, it's up to you to remind them exactly what it was. Now, why do we network? Well, for me, it was because my business venture needed to. I needed to talk to people. I couldn't do it by myself. And I really need to get partnerships in there. And we've all heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So it's unfair, but it's just the way it is. And I didn't really take networking seriously at the start. I talked to friends and family, validated our friends and family. You kind of talk to your wife, you talk to your mum, talk to your dad, and you kind of get an idea of what they think. But the real world's not them. They've got a biased opinion. And when you talk about your idea, not only do you, as I mentioned, that friend and foe situation, you also get your thoughts out there, and people pass on. You cannot underestimate what someone may have the potential to do for you. They may come in, which I'll get into later, they'll wear another tag. They might have 10 businesses, but they'll come along with some crazy unknown business to keep themselves under the radar. And if you do it right, you've just created an echo. So you've just said something, they'll say it on. Of course, you've got the issue of Chinese whispers, where they might not say the right idea and it can get lost, and you'll never know how truly far it goes. But the opportunity for them to become an extension of you is huge, especially when still it's just myself. I've got many advisors, many professionals, but it's still just myself, and I need to make sure that I'm not spending the amount of time on the wrong things and the right things. So, I just can't do it myself. Obviously, where does it happen? Bus, train, plane, here, anywhere. And I had a fantastic situation, purely point in time. So I was flown over to San Francisco, lucky, so humble that I had the opportunity. And I got bumped up to premium economy, and that was great. It's always great to get upgraded. What happened is someone got bumped down from business class, and they were actually a representative for Japan. They do trade, represent New Zealand to Japan, and she was sitting there with her son, chatted about the weather, and then we talked about, obviously there was a plane that had crashed on the airway next to us, so it sort of broke the ice, and from there we had 12 hours together. Obviously, if I stuffed it up, it was going to be awkward, but from there I got a business card, she emailed me, and it's fantastic. It's just an idea like that. And when you're in a networking environment, you've got to remember that when you're an outsider, you're entering in relationships that are already there. You don't know that person and that group is the key person, and don't disrupt what they're talking about. You've just got to listen. You've got to somehow find your way in and just listen and let them talk to you, and don't talk about your idea too much. Work to your strengths, don't fight against necessarily what's unnatural to you, but at the same time it's good to obviously get out of the comfort zone. And if you don't like a large room of unknown people, pick something that's more intimate. There's lots of meetups, there's lots of groups these days, there's lots of those little things, those user groups and such, and you just get in there, it's 5 people instead of 500. And another thing is, if you've got a product and you're trying to find out what people think of that product, just do a workshop, just invite some people, because it's a lot different when you're trying to sell them something at that point in time, where you're inviting them to something where they're not obligated to talk directly to you. They can sit in the background, don't have to say a word, they don't have to present who they are, they can find out about you. It can work, depends on what you're offering, and don't rely wholly on faceless networking. And that's really specific in a place like here. Don't go on LinkedIn. Don't just add people, because chances are they'll add you and forget you. There's no trigger. There's nothing in the back of their mind going, who's this person? They don't know truly what you are. They can't see your passion. And just things like LinkedIn are great as a follow-up tool. You get their business card and then you add them. And generally when you're adding things on LinkedIn, you can give context. You generally go that just add, or connect, but actually just put a little message in there, because then they'll actually go, you've put the effort in. It's that typical saying, you put a little bit of effort in it and you generally get recognized, that you're not just going, oh, add, yeah, these people are great. Never underestimate. So again, as I mentioned, people will come to these meetings and they won't represent themselves. They won't wear a name tag, they'll just sit in the background, they'll wear casual clothes instead of their $500 Italian suits. And it's really like playing poker. So you've got people who you kind of might recognize them, or you can kind of see an idea that these people are talking to them, but you don't know why. And you've got to figure out why, and you kind of learn to play your cards. And it's, if they're confident about the situation, you can tell that no matter if they're not wearing something, they're someone important. And it's really, really, really key to pick up on those social cues. It's a big thing. And sometimes just going to a networking event, people always go, oh, go to a networking event and get in there. Sometimes it's actually really good to sit back, because if they're the people you've got to deal with, this is almost a covert operation. You can just watch what they're doing, get a feel of what everyone's doing, and then you can see who the really important people are, because they're either the ones circling around, shaking everyone's hand, or they're just sitting in the corner and everyone's coming to them. Very easy, key things to pick up on. And there's a Chinese proverb that I love, and it says, if you meet someone on the road, treat them as your greater, because chances are you'll put yourself in a greater light, because they're either your greater, your peer, or your lesser. And it doesn't matter what you do, if you respect them that much, they can do nothing but respect you. And the other side is, don't overestimate. So be aware of burning time on people that are really enthusiastic. They may go, yeah, I love this idea, fantastic. I'm going to talk to everyone about it. But actually, all they are is just a noise. And that comes from, they'll ramble. They'll take misinformation and make it very loud. And because of that, they tend to not have a lot of respect. And what can happen is they can, again, Chinese whispers, they can tell others about your idea, completely screw it up, and you've just lost a whole bunch of influence. It's a hard one to pick because, as I said, Chinese whispers, it's really hard. When you're pitching to someone, there's a term called the elevator pitch. You've got, 5 floors, you've got 30 seconds sometimes, and you've got to get that idea out there. And in that time, you've got to make sure it's very clear so that when they tell someone, that they can say the exact same thing that you said. And if you don't, God forbid, these people are also amplify this noise, it's going to be really, really hard to get that message out there, and they can screw it up for you. And these people can take a lead and just dissolve it. So you talk to them, they'll go off and talk to someone. That person will go, oh, I don't respect you and I don't respect what you say. It's a shame. It's just the way it works in the hierarchy of a lot of corporate worlds. And it will just dissolve, and you don't even know that context disappeared. You might then follow up this person. They're too ashamed to say that it failed, and they're too ashamed to tell you that it failed. So the next thing you know, you think you've got this lead that's going for months and months and months, and then it falls over all of a sudden. And of course, what happens is naturally when you're so enthusiastic about one lead, you can tend to just focus on it. And it's fallen over with me in the past, and yeah, a lot of time has been burnt, and it's really, really important. It's hard to pick who these people are, but it's just from time and recognition. And over time, you start to learn people talk, and people have reputations. So yeah, there's no right way. So it's really, really hard. There's stories of $1 million, $1 billion acquisitions that happened, and they all sound the same. They all sound like they've gone out, done it overnight, and they've won, and they're fantastic. Everything's wonderful. But when you actually get down to the root of things, once the dust settles, you can find the true stories, and you find that none of them are the same. No one. They might start off by doing similar stuff, but no one approaches it the same. There's no one formula, there's no one method, and that's really the one thing that's come from me is I'm doing it my way because other people have done it theirs, and it comes down to good timing, right place, right time, and I really can't define it any more than that. So really, this is my thoughts on networking: is listen more than talk. Funnily enough, I'm talking, but thank you for listening. And respect everyone because you don't know who they are. Don't overthink a situation just because someone didn't look like they were interested. I was surprised. I've been surprised so many times. I thought someone was tuned out and they'd come back a week later. Don't get angry unreasonably. Now this is an interesting one. So you're driving down the road, someone cuts you off, you bang your horn, you give them the finger. Now bear in mind that person may be the one person you need to deal with the next week, who's a big key person in that business. It's happened before, I'm not proud of it, and I'll never ever do that again. Across my journey, I've met some amazing people, and have really surprised me. And I've met people who are actually quite willing to see me fail every single day. They'll take any opportunity, and there's many names I can say, but one of them said in a very public forum for me to give up and just don't worry about it. But I found out there was an ulterior motive to it. And it's just that sort of thing, is that resilience. It's really hard because you can feel so alone sometimes, but that networking builds those people around you, that advisory board, the people that can just give you that opposite opinion, that boost you need. And yeah, learn to respect your time. So I love coming to these places. The big talks and everything just aren't as great as they seem. It's fantastic to feel like you're moving up in the world, you're talking these things, but they're there for ulterior motives. They're there to network. They're not. This is just a filler. They're probably just on their phone, texting and getting out, where these are real opportunities to talk to people in smaller, intimate environments. And I really encourage you. I'll come to questions later, and I really hope you do have some. There was one key relationship that I built up, and that was, there's a thing called Angel HQ, and essentially it's a group of investors that get together, and you get 3-minute opportunity initially, and then a 10-minute opportunity after that to follow up, and then they can say if they want to invest or not. We went along for a 3-minute opportunity. We got invited. There was typical get together just before. I talked to this one guy we had 15 minutes. I consumed his whole 15 minutes. I didn't know who he was. He wasn't wearing a badge. And what happened was, he ended up being one of the key investors of this whole evening. And he actually followed up and said he wanted to talk and offer advice. Because we're too early stage back when I did it. He just wanted to offer advice because he only invested like 5 million upwards. It was a crazy amount. And later on, I found out his name was Sam Knowles, and he's the old ex-CEO of KiwiBank. He's the guy who brought KiwiBank up from what it was, from nothing to where it is. He's gone off to Xero, which you probably all heard about, and other things. Like he's the chairman there, and he's offered me basically mentorship for free. We're normally on boards. He gets, I think it's like $5,000 a board meeting. So I get monthly times with that, and that came from just not knowing who this was, unprepared, talked to this guy, accidentally consumed his whole time. He had an opportunity to talk to everyone else, and it just came out of the blue. So, right time, right place, and you don't know who you're talking to. So, I really don't think this geographic. People say just Gisborne, just Palmy. I've often had it coined at me when you start going at it. They go, "Oh, where you from? Palms North." I go, "Ha ha." Whatever various Q thing from John Cleese saying that's a place where people go to die. Then I went to Wellington, which is dying, so fantastic. And we've got high-speed internet these days, so it's the opportunity to get out there, get at just so many things. And people will talk about social networking later on and getting out there, but don't give up that face-to-face time. There's teleconference people who basically sell this product, talk over the video, over the internet, Skype and all that stuff. But the funniest, their highest expense is flying to meet people. And that's the truth. I'm not making that up. I won't mention the companies, but yeah, a lot of them, their high expense is going overseas. And basically, being from Palmy, I get the occasional poker fund. So please don't use this as your like a hindrance. Use it as your point of difference. Go out there and say, yeah, I'm from Gisborne. So what? I've made it this far. I'm coming to meet you. I've made the effort to go and meet you. And straight away, people really recognise that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's fantastic. So please don't think it's a bad thing being from a small place. And yeah, any questions or anything? I'm happy to answer. Go on. One.
Yeah, I have one.
One question.
But it's got nothing to do with networking.
Yeah.
It's in regard to e-receipts.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering what you thought about the privacy issues with that.
Fantastic question, right? So we've dealt with the Privacy Commission, and what we're doing is essentially all that information of what you can, you get on your receipt, and it'll get fed into the internet banking. Now, the banks already know about you, but for them to see that information, you have to opt in, and that's things dictated by the Privacy Commission, not by the banks. And so that means you have to agree to it or not agree to it. If you don't agree to it, they don't know. So it's that clear. They're not going to know anything more than what they know about you now. And same for any third parties. So, for example, Loyalty NZ, Flybuys want to use, change their loyalty card to being that Flybuys card to potentially moving on to the FPOS card so you don't have to swipe the extra thing. You have to allow them to see your information. And you can cut it off, and if for some reason that they still get your information, it's because they've failed on their side, and it's very easy to do litigation or legal stuff against them because it's very clear that there was a you have accepted that and then you have cut that off, and if they've still got it, we hold basically the evidence for you to take them to court. So we're like a nice third party that sort of manages your privacy. Does that help at all?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It's our number one concern, absolutely.
It's
And
just the holding on, because you assume that they have to register in order to get the e-receipt.
that's right.
And it's like the person who's holding your information is building it up and doing a profile of them.
That's right.
So I'm just wondering what happens to their information, if it's shared, you spam their email, or because it's got to be sent to email or mobile or probably cloud.
Yeah, it's going to internet banking initially. Yeah.
I wonder what happens. I'm just curious about what happens with the information if they refuse.
So we're just a custodian for your data.
Yeah.
So I'll be liable for your information if it leaks. So that's sort of my responsibility, and I've made sure, Privacy Commission is really involved. Those sort of key people, and I agree, it's a risk. It's always going to be a key point, no matter it's information. But the typical retort is the banks know a lot about you already, and they can already profile you. The line item information doesn't really tell them much more. But yeah, I always think of the good things, and that's sort of where it's come from. I don't try and think too much about the bad, but the bad has been sort of considered as best as we can. And myself, I'm not creating any products or anything that uses your data. I'm just holding your data. I don't know who you are. The nature of it is you come in as a number. I don't know who you are. So we don't hold your name, your address, nothing identifiable. All we see is your payment card is not even 123. It was like XYZB123, yeah. So we don't even know who you are. And that's for you to make the connection between the bank or the third party to identify yourself. So yeah, we want it so that you can come up to a retailer, they don't know who you are, you can choose not to tell them, and away you go, you can still get your receipt. Yeah. Yep.
Another non-networking.
Cool, yeah, that's fine.
To do with flybys.
Yes.
Do you think there will come a time where have they kick themselves fully and go? But also will urge you to go. The other thing is that when you did go, did they have any proprietary ownership of?
Yeah, right.
Did they go to any of that stuff?
No, so
It was ideas that you had while you were in your employment.
that's right, exactly, and it was really key. So when I was going through employment, I made sure that I told them about it before I signed the agreement, and there was always an exclusion. And I made sure that there was no impact whatsoever on, And
So you had your idea before you started working?
That's right, that's right. But funnily enough, though, I did have a job where I did actually have the idea, came up through it, and there was no exclusion. But I basically, one of the things I've learned is be open and honest. And I went straight to them and said, look, I'm building up this idea. Please support me. I'm not going to impede on anything I do day to day.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, on my advisory board is 3 of my old bosses. So, that's sort of the thing. It's amazing. You can get the wrong people and the other people you don't want to be around. You learn that very quickly. And yeah, so absolutely, it's very key if you are going to start a business, make sure that, that there is some exclusion, or you at least talk to people about what you're doing. Again, talking to people about it ends up being a great thing. Yeah. And in terms of loyalty, again, the people there, the CEO's just gone, but Lance, he was often getting me in to pitch and update them. They really wanted to know, they had the stakeholders of all the 3 to 4 stakeholders, major stakeholders, kind of going, you're a competitor, but actually he saw that we weren't, and he just knew where it could fit in, because they're on a 16-year-old model, and they know they need to change, and they saw it as an opportunity to change. So, yeah. Cool.
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah, sure.
For the second question. The first thing is, I'm absolutely fascinated at the wonderful way you've been making music as you move.
Oh, sorry.
All right. You chose the one place in the room that has got a squeaky floor.
Oh, it is so.
It is so cool. So,
Okay.
last, but that'll be a little bit better.
Good news.
And tip to future speakers in this room, watch out for that.